Okay. We're trying to find these answers here 1 through 5, and we're looking at graphs. And so we're being asked to find these things, and as I've shown the class, I hope you remember the graphically organized way to go about this. We want to find p prime of -1. So here's what p is, and p is what? P of x is what? It is a product of these two functions, g of f of x and g of x. So if we go ahead and we set up our box the way, and this is for number 1, I'm putting a little box up here like this, right? And so we want to find, so f of x, g of x. So look at f of -1. Well, here's -1. That looks like that's 0, doesn't it? So f of -1 is 0. What's f prime of -1?
I'm sorry?
What is f prime of -1?
1.
There's 1, okay? So you're looking at the slopes here. So here's a slope of 1, slope of 0, slope of -2 as far as I can tell. And so now we go over here to look at the g, and g of -1 is that 2? Is that 2 right there? I think so. And then where's our slope here? Looks like slope is -1.
2.
And this slope here is 0, and this slope here looks like it's 2. So anyway, these are all the slopes I've written in blue here of these little segments. So here the slope is -1. So p prime of -1 is what?
-2.
Okay, 2 times 1 plus 0 times -1. That's going to be 2, okay? So that's it. And then what I'm going to do is, since we're on p, I'm going to go down to 3, just because. So I'm going to mark this little box over here for problem 3. So p prime of 3 is, what did you get for 3? Look at 3.
0.
Looks like we get 2, 0 for the f, and go over here to 3, we get -1, 0.
Oh.
So that's going to get 0, isn't it? Because that's 0, right? Did you get 0 for that? That's good. Okay, what about these other ones? These other ones are quotients. And so R of 5, so we're going to have, for 5, we're going to have low of 5, D low of 5, high of 5, and D high of 5. And we just look here, okay, so here's the high is the F and the low is the G, so let's start with the low. So G of 5 is, what is G of 5?
1.
Looks like 1. G of 5, G prime of 5 is 2. And now we go over here to for 5, we get f of 5, looks like 0, right? And then we get -2. So we're going to get this is for number 5, we get low r prime of 5 is equal to the low, which is 1, d high minus high d low all over low squared, that's 1 squared, right? So that's going to be -2, isn't it? And then r prime of 2 for 5, we'll put low of 2, d low of 2, high of 2, d high, yeah, that's not very good looking, right, of 2. We just write these. So here's, okay, we're talking about the same thing. The G is the low, so we go to G. What do you get for G? You get -1, right? What do you get for D low? If we go to 2, what do we get for D low?
Aha.
Aha, what do we get?
Nothing.
We get does not exist. So what is our answer for this one? Does not exist. Okay, and this really, we have a corner. Wherever we have we can't get the slope at a corner. So wherever you see a corner, that is not differentiable, because you can't tell if it's -1 or 0, can you? It's right at that corner. So that leads us into differentiability. Now for Q of -2, yeah, so I think -2 we can use. So we have 3F. So let's talk about, this is for 4. We have high, D high, and that's going to be of 2, D high, or -2, excuse me, -2, low of -2, and D low, -2. What are these going to be?
What does that say? I told you.
And F is the high in this case, and G is the, no, 3F, I got it wrong. G is the high, so G of -2, G of -2, we get 3, and then the D high is -1, and the low we have 3F of X, right? So what's 3 times F of -2? Well, that's -1, and 3 times that is -3, and then our slope of that is going to be 1. So we have is a Q prime of -2. It's going to be low, D high, minus high, D low, all over low squared. That's going to be -3 squared. So what's this going to be up here? Is that 3 minus 3? Does that look right? Yeah, it looks like that's 0 also, doesn't it? Is that what you got for that? Anyway, but it's the same thing. If you do the scavenger hunt thing where you keep track of things, and the instant you find does not exist, then your work is done. Then you know you don't have a derivative at that point. That does bring us into differentiability, which is note card 13. we are going to probably start on that tomorrow. Then, let's go look at this one, right? We already did this one. Okay, what I want you to do is look at this one right here, which is similar to the one we did earlier with the graphs. So go do these. And check out something. Yeah, you have to, for this one you have to know this, like the slopes are, look like you got slope of 1, 0, 1, and this is a slope of -3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is slope of -3/5 looks like. Or negative 3/5 or -0.6. This one's here, -1, 0, -4. And this one here looks like that's 3/2. So there's some slopes that could be helpful. Does somebody smell food in here?
I do.
No longer.
It's because of culinary.
I smell like it.
They're making burgers.
Oh man, it smells good.
Let's go take a class.
I could be hungry.
What are we doing our food day?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, we got, this slope is, this slope here is 3/2, I guess. It's right up 3/2. So, we'll say slope M equals 3/2. This is M equals 1. This is slope of -3/5. This is -1, 0, -4 is this piece here. And then this one here is going to be 3/2. And those are all slopes. Okay, and this is, let me go, I think I worked all these out earlier. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, okay. So here they all are worked out.
Oh, okay.
Got it wrong. And 2 is the only one we care about here. So we get our slope of negative, I said -3/5.
No, it's 2/3.
It is -2/3, okay. I put -3/5 earlier. Yeah, so that is going to be -2/3. That is right. But you have V prime of -2 or V prime of 2, excuse me. Yeah, V prime of 2 does not exist. So that's what makes this whole thing not exist. erase this here. Okay, g of x and 7, 8, g of x and h of x are differentiable functions with values given below. And then we have this one here, 7 and 8. So main thing is, if you remember, to use the box to put things together and use your high, low, d high, d low. These things shouldn't be that hard. So to me, it's like organized. If you're organized through this thing, that shouldn't be hard. So up here, I'm going to put g of 1, g prime of 1. Down here we have 4h, right? So put 4 h of 1, and then 4 h prime of 1. And we do that, we go down 1, right? We see g, which is 2. What is g prime? 5. Well, it goes down here. 0, right? And negative 16. So here, we're going to get, that's 0, right? So what's this going to be? Negative 32. Okay, that looks good. And then for this other one, we got we're looking at 2, so our high of 2, d high of 2, low of 2, d low of 2, so what do we get for all these? Here's high, d high. Well, high is h, right? And 2 is what we're interested in. So that's going to be, is that 2? And negative 3. And then we have 5 and 8. Is that right? And then if we go ahead and That's going to be equal to low D high minus high D low, which is 8, all over 5 squared. So that's going to be, what was it, 15, negative 15 minus 16, that's, what is that going to be? Negative 31 over 25, right? So that's it. Does that look like that's very, very hard? Is that going to be hard to remember at all? Gavin, is that hard? Is that hard to remember,
I
Hannah?
mean, as long as you give me the equation sheet.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is you really shouldn't need is there an equation sheet that's necessary for this?
Yes.
There is?
No, just
What if-
kidding, I remember the song, I lied.
You mean the low D high, high D low?
Yeah,
You remember that?
yeah.
So if you remember that, that's good. What about the product rule thing with the box? Can you remember that? Can you remember how to, now here you don't have to differentiate, you just have to go and hunt through the table, right? But just the basic power rule of differentiation and remembering those two things can get you through there, all right?
Hey now,
So,
you didn't have time?